Here's our video for numbers 6 through 15. I know some of the teachers have been doing warm-ups with this, kind of introducing, making sure you guys understand we have a picture. There are some things that will be marked congruent for us, some things that we need to mark on our own. So let's go ahead and just jump straight in. Take a look at number 6. I've always said in the videos to mark S's, A's, H's, and L's on your triangle. Only focus on one triangle so you don't have too many. Here I see that I've got a side marked congruent here and a side marked congruent here on both triangles. And then I have an angle marked. So with two S's and an A, there's one way of arranging it where they prove congruency and one that does not. So we need to ask ourselves, does the congruent angle touch both the congruent sides? I see that yes, it does. So the A touches both of the S's. Number 7. What our brain a lot of time wants to jump to here is HL, okay? But in order for us to have HL congruency, we have to have the hypotenuse marked congruent. Hypotenuse always located across the 90-degree angle. It is not marked congruent. You do not have congruent hypotenuse, so therefore we cannot use the HL. So let's look at if we can use something or if this is going to end up being not congruence. I see a side marked on both triangles, so I have an S. I see an angle marked on both, so I have an A. And I also have a second set of angles. All 90-degree angles, all right angles are congruent based on your right angle congruent theorem. So all 90-degree angles are congruent, so you do have another pair of corresponding congruent angles. So we have two A's and an S. Let's look at what order they need to be in. Does that side touch both? Does the congruent side touch both congruent angles? Yes. So that S, just like on number 6 with the A, the S is going to touch both A's. 8 is a pretty straightforward one here. I've got congruent sides right here. Here's a side. I have congruent sides right here. All right, another side. Well, we can already process of elimination. We can already cross off a bunch of options. We can't do ASA because we already have two sides. Can't do HL. There's no 90-degree angle. We can't do AAS because we have two sides. We find out that we do have a third side. So we have three S's. There's only one order you can put that in, right? S, S, S. Number 9 is going to be one of those special cases where they don't have everything marked for you. You're going to have to look around and see what else is going on, or if there's anything else. Here I have a side, pretty easy to find, and then I also have this angle marked. Now, there is something else in this picture that you should be able to see by now because we have talked about these kind of angles for a very, very long time, almost all year. Right here in the middle, you have a pair of vertical angles. So you do have another A. So we have two A's and an S. Let's look at what order they go in. Our congruent side, we see here, touches both congruent angles. So our S is going to touch both A's. Number 10 is going to be a lot of fun, guys, because there's actually 3 different ways you can prove that these are congruent. So I'm going to split it up in 3 different colors so you can see the letters differently here. The first one I'm going to go over is going to be one that a lot of us are going to want to see here. We notice here we have a 90-degree angle. So across from a 90-degree angle is the hypotenuse, and I have that marked congruent. So I do have an H. Also, I have a leg right here. Okay, I'm going to erase that so don't get confused with the other colors. But this is going to be my leg. So I can prove these two triangles congruent by HL. But watch this. Knowing that all shared sides of these triangles are going to be congruent because they are the same size, right here we have a side right here. This is your shared side. That's another thing like the vertical angles that you're going to have to see on your own. So if this is congruent also, here I have a side, and I have another side. So I can also prove this congruent by side, side, side. Not done yet. Told you this is going to be a fun one. What we also have here is what we talked about in number 7, the right angle congruence theorem, where all right angles are congruent. So you could also say, okay, you've got your side here, you've got your side here, you also have a congruent angle. And that, write that a little bit prettier for you to see. Try it at least. So here you have side, angle, side also. That's all. So number 11, pay close attention. Your teacher may or may not have gone over some like this already. We have parallel sides. We also have what I told you that you're going to have to recognize on your own, and that's that shared side. So here I'm going to go ahead and mark my shared side, so I do have an S. Now let's talk about these parallel lines. If I take these parallel lines, I'm going to take the top and bottom one because they each have one triangle, meaning they're parallel to each other. I'm going to extend it so that I can see where the parallel lines are. And then here is my transversal. I'm going to do it in yellow because it'll be the same on both. My transversal right here. Okay? With the transversal and the parallel lines, on these two triangles, you're going to have alternate interior angles. Your alternate interior angles, if you ignored this line and ignored this line, okay, the two on the side, trying to cover the best I can, we have these parallel lines in my transversal. We have an angle, alternate interior angles here and here. Now, some students with these parallel, some people with these parallel lines, they're going to, do not write this down because I'm going to erase it. They're going to want to say that these are alternate interior with these parallel lines, but they're not, because if you actually look at it, the angle goes all the way to that parallel side. So it goes outside the triangle. So with these parallel lines and that transversal, these are not going to be alternate interior angles. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase my original parallel because I have to talk about the other set of parallel sides. Okay? I'll go ahead and write in my A for the alternate interior angles. Now let's look at the other two parallel sides. Got this side and this side. And now we still have the same transversal here. Okay? But if it helps you, shift it around to where we see our parallel lines going horizontal like a lot of us are used to seeing with our transversal here. You're going to notice another pair of alternate interior angles. These are the angles we were talking about earlier that I said were not alternate interior. They are once you shift these parallel lines, once you use these parallel lines. With the other ones, they were not. So here we do have another set of alternate interior. Okay, so we do have ourselves another A. So we take a look at one of those triangles. This is a very, very complex one. When we take a look at one of the triangles, we see here we have two A's and an S, and that side touches both A's. Therefore, the side touches both angles, so the S will touch both A's. We're going to have another little bit of complex one here, so just, listen to what I'm saying, ask more questions if you need to, if you watch this prior to going to class. Here we are going to be taking a look at some parallel lines as well. The first thing that I want us to see here, though, before anything, is going to be that we have congruent sides. Okay, so we do have an S right here. So let's take a look at our parallel sides. We're going to use the same line as the transversal again. Whenever I draw out these parallel sides, this first set, we actually do have two transversals. We have this one right here, and we have this one. Okay? If we use this one right here, it's only involving one triangle, though. Okay? So what I want to do is I want to use this side as my transversal. So when I look at my parallel lines here and my transversal, again, if it helps to kind of rotate your page, I see a lot of my students doing that so that you see them kind of a little bit more horizontal. And then we have our transversal. I want you to notice here that Inside of, we always have to focus on inside of the triangle. We don't want to do anything on the outside of the triangle because that's not where our triangle's angles are. If you take a look, this angle right here and this angle right here are congruent because they are corresponding. And if I extend my transversal a little further, we see that this is in the bottom right position. This is in the bottom right position of our parallel lines and our transversal. Okay? I'll erase these so that we can take out the other parallel sides. And if I rotate this way, we are other parallel sides here, using the exact same transversal. We now have corresponding angles right here as well. Okay, so whenever you cover up one, you can see that angle there. Okay, if you kind of try to block out everything else, this angle at the bottom that I have is on the top right. This angle right here is on the top right. These are the hardest to see whenever you have a lot of parallel sides, and especially just because you have a lot of lines you want to try not to get distracted by. So here I have an angle that I marked in the first set of parallel sides, and then here's my other angle. So I look at, I got two A's and an S. Does that congruent side touch both congruent angles? Again, only focusing on one of the two triangles here. And I say, yes, the side does touch both the congruent angles, so the S touches both of the A's. On number 13, we're going to have to do a little arithmetic to figure out what's going on. We should be able to see right here, again, that shared side you're going to have to find on your own. They're not going to give that to you, so we have a side. Now, we also see I have 59 degrees right here and 59 degrees over here. So I have an angle. Awesome. Problem is that these two are not congruent, but we have two angles that we don't have measurements of. So we are going to use our triangle sum theorem. We're going to add two angles. Well, I'll go ahead and stick on this triangle. We're going to add the two angles, subtract it from 180 to see what each of these angles are. So I'm going to take that 59 plus 61. I'm going to wind up with 119. No, wait, hold on. 59 plus 60. I'm going to start on this triangle over here, sorry. Plus 60. I'm going to wind up with 119. Then I'm going to subtract that from 180, and I'm going to get 61, which means this angle over here is going to be 61 degrees. Now, you do not have to do the triangle sum theorem for this angle over here to find out if it's congruent or not, because we already have two pairs of congruent angles. Also, your third angle theorem, if you've got two angles that are congruent, the third angles are automatically going to be congruent as well. So we have ourselves another A. Because I have a lot of pink going on, I'm going to switch colors. We need to look at that side. We have two A's and an S. So let's determine where that S goes. We take a look at the congruent side. Does it touch both the congruent angles? What I see is it's only touching one of the congruent angles here. So what that means is that side can only touch one of the A's. So you have AAS. Number 14, we have an angle marked on each one right here. Lucky us. There's another thing we're going to have to see, and we're going to have to see it on our own and mark it on our own. We have our vertical angles. So we have another A. When we're looking at the triangles, well, I don't see any sides marked congruent, and I don't see any shared sides. So what's happening here is all you have are two pairs of congruent angles. There is no congruency with two A's. So what you would just say is not enough information. Not enough information. Cannot prove that they're congruent. Number 15, I see an angle and an angle, so we have an A. I see another pair of angles over here, I have another A. And then I see myself, I've got sides, so I have an S. So two A's and an S. Again, we need to take a look at that side. Does that congruent side touch both of the congruent angles? It does not. It only touches one. so that S, again, can only touch one of the A's.